Hey everybody, Matt Colville here. Okay, yeah, the glasses. Yeah, so I don't know if you folks know this, but I am looking at a teleprompter, and the thing about a teleprompter is that you want it to be as far away as possible, because the farther away it is, the harder it is for you folks watching to notice my eye line moving as I'm reading lines of text. And if it were very close to me, it would be super obvious that my eyes were moving, or in fact, my whole head might move. So you want it to be really, really far away because that minimizes the travel of your eyes. But then of course, the flip side of that is the text gets really, really small. It gets hard to read. Now, the teleprompter is not a sophisticated piece of technology. It's literally just an iPad sitting on a little platform. And then there's a piece of plastic that reflects the light from the iPad up and into my eyes. But then if you put a hood over the plastic and the camera, the light bouncing off of me goes through the plastic and into the lens of the camera. So since it's an iPad, we can just increase the text size and make it easy to read even at a distance. But the problem with that is that if the text gets really, really big, you can only fit a few words per line. And when I can only see a few words per line at a time, it gets really hard for me to figure out where I am in the script and the tone and the flow of the text. And I have to spend a lot of time with my controller here, going backwards and forwards and speeding up and slowing down, which is super annoying. So at the end of the day, the solution was just put my glasses on. I really should get LASIK. A lot of my friends have gotten LASIK. I'm lazy. I'm lazy, so I don't have LASIK. So anyway, I got a bunch of videos in the pike, but first I just thought it would be a good idea to give everybody a sort of general MCDM update of what we're working on and what state various projects are in. If you follow us on Twitch, I talk about this stuff all the time, but I realize most people avoid Twitch like the plague, and that's fine. Everything important ends up here. We'll put chapter breaks in so you can jump to the bits you care about. Let's start with Kingdoms and Warfare. The PDF for Kingdoms and Warfare is out, as I'm sure you probably know. It seems like people are happy with it. There is a ton of conversation in our Discord every day. People are making lots of content for it. They've made their own units. They've made their own custom domains. Folks have adapted existing adventures for Intrigue and Warfare. That is awesome. And the thing that makes me really happy is that when folks have questions, they can get an answer in the Discord. And the answer is usually right. That means the book is working. People aren't arguing about how it should work, and that is a good sign. But while you can buy the PDF now, the books and minis and everything else won't be shipping for a while because of the whole shipping apocalypse, which if you haven't heard about, you will. In fact, you've probably already encountered it in some form or another. Like, you know how hard computer chips and video cards are to get? Well, that is just one tiny corner of a huge problem that basically affects every industry that relies on any other country for supplies or shipping. COVID caused all sorts of problems with the supply chain, and then a ship got stuck in the Suez Canal, and that caused major disruptions in global trade that has only gotten worse. A lot of companies saw that there was a blockage in the canal, so they sent their ships around Africa. And now that the canal is unblocked, you have all those ships, plus all the ships that went around, all arriving at docks in Europe that are operating at like 35% capacity or less because of COVID, with the effect that nothing's moving. Not just printers can't ship books, they can, it's just really, really expensive. Printers can't get paper because of all this. There's this gridlock where nothing can happen until the next piece of the puzzle moves, and that piece is waiting on another piece that's waiting on the first piece, and eventually this will all go back to normal, but not anytime soon, and not before it gets a lot worse. So the minis are all done and sitting in a warehouse. The unit deck is done and printed. The DM screen is at the printer, and the book is ready to print, but we don't know when everyone will get their product. When we know more about shipping, we will tell you. Obviously, we would really like to get everyone their products, but right now things are crazy. Next thing I think people want to know about is the chain. I think the question we get the most is, when is the Chain of Acheron coming back? Well, I've got good news and bad news. The good news is that I plan on running the players through their own individual downtime adventures soonish. And once those are done, we go back to the heist. So the story of the chain will continue, and it will continue this year, I think. That's the good news. The bad news is we're not going to stream it. You're not going to be able to watch it. The plan is to play and record it, but just do campaign diaries from now on and punctuate the video with clips from the game. So you'll still get to see the epic or funny or dramatic moments, and you'll be able to follow along with the story, but you won't be able to watch us play. And I know that's going to upset some people. I sympathize, but this is my solution. Let's you folks follow the story, because once lockdown was over and we all had our vaccines, the players, some of the players, not all of them, approached me individually and said, I don't think I want to keep playing. You play without me. Well, that really depressed me. I was wondering is this the end of D&D with these folks? But when I asked them why, they all said the same thing: I don't enjoy being on camera. They all had different reasons, but it makes sense to me. None of them are performers. None of them have any ambition to be performers or public figures or online personalities. Most of them aren't even really on Twitter or social media. These are people with their own careers in which they have invested years of work, and they're all highly respected in their jobs. And the only reason they ever agreed to be on stream in the first place is because I asked them to. They felt like they wanted to play D&D, and if Matt wants to stream it, okay. I think some of them thought streaming would be fun. It was not fun. It is a huge pain in the ass for a lot of reasons, a lot of obvious reasons, and a lot of complex personal reasons we're not going to get into. And also, I do not like streaming the chain. It is hugely, hugely stressful for me. Everyone who works at MCDM learned to just leave me alone on Wednesdays because I am a wreck before the show. It is intensely stressful and unpleasant for me, and there aren't really words to describe how I feel before a game except bad. Now, all those bad feelings go away once I'm behind the screen and running the game. I love running D&D, and I love running for these folks, and I think the story of the chain is amazing, but streaming it just brought enormous stress. The fans are awesome. I loved seeing folks engaging with the story and the characters and the world, and I loved seeing folks inspired by a different kind of D&D campaign. You know, we started at 5th level. We started in the middle of the action. The game immediately and often goes to other planes of existence, but the negatives far outweigh the positives. Like, being a DM is stressful, but I can handle that. And making products is stressful, but I can handle that. Both at the same time just causes me to tilt and go into overload. So the long and the short of it is, we tried streaming, we didn't like it. And for about a day, I got real depressed, thinking this might be the end of D&D for me. Obviously, that was an overreaction, but if these were the people I wanted to play with, and they didn't want to play, then... But it turned out they just didn't like being on camera. So after I was depressed for a little while, I had an idea. Why not just bring the campaign diaries back and record our games, but only use clips in the diaries? When I suggested that, everybody was hugely relieved, and folks talked about how excited they were to get back to the game and their characters. As long as they didn't have to worry about the entire session ending up online, they were a lot more relaxed about the whole thing. And I didn't really want to break the connection between the community and the story. Obviously, I respect my players' desire not to have the entire session online, but I want you folks to still be able to follow along. And I know for a few thousand people, the recorded session was the juice, and I wish everything had worked out, but it really did not. All that being said, I like solving problems, so MCDM may try something else in the future with a different group of people, like maybe other local streamers who would be more comfortable with the sessions being online. That's possible, but it wouldn't obviously solve my stress issues with streaming my game. However, there is an addendum to that, which we will talk about now. I got vaccinated and felt this enormous sense of relief, and it was an opportunity to just, take stock of my life. And one of the things I did was I asked myself, what do I really want to do right now? Not what am I obligated to do? If I could do whatever I want as far as gaming goes, what would I do? And I thought, I miss 4th edition, and I'd really like to introduce the MCDM group to it and maybe run the game over Fantasy Grounds so we could play with folks I know, but who don't live around here. And it would be nice to stream it because I think folks online would like to see how cool this earlier edition is. So I asked Anna and Tom and OD because they'd never played 4E before. And then I asked Justice Arman, who I know because he worked on Arcadia, and my YouTube neighbor Dale Kingsmill, neither of whom had played 4th edition. And I cooked up a simple adventure, and we've been playing ever since. We played a couple of times a week for a while. So now there's like 40 hours of a whole new campaign on Twitch, link in the doobly-doo. And I think we got about 3 more adventures before we wrap up book 1, and then I'll go back to the chain. It's been a lot of fun, in spite of the fact that we've been streaming it, and that's because only I am on camera, so the other folks don't feel the same pressure they do with the chain, and everyone's playing from the comfort of our own homes, which means we're all a lot more relaxed, but also way fewer people are watching, and that is nice. And also, I don't pay attention to chat, like, at all. So I'm not constantly interrupting the players talking about the gifted subs or rules we got wrong or any of that stuff. And that means I am way more focused on the game. And also, the players don't have this feeling of being watched, which is not a natural or desirable feeling for most people. The first 2 sessions were rough because everyone was learning both 4th edition and Fantasy Grounds, and even I hadn't used either in years, and I was very rusty. And so things just took a long time. But by the 3rd session, folks got it, and now we've done 10 sessions and it's pretty smooth. And my friends really like 4th edition. More than one person has asked, can we just switch the chain to 4E? This is more fun. Well, maybe. That's a big question. Certainly not until after the heist. And I love running 4th edition. I cannot tell you how much more fun 4th edition is to build and run encounters for. Like, building encounters is actually fun for me now. That's probably a subject for a whole video though. Jerry has been editing the live streams down for YouTube, and I'm going to record an intro for the first session explaining everything, so you'll see that soon. But you can watch all the videos on Twitch if you want the somewhat tedious, unedited experience. So the 4E game is a big hit with me and the group, and we play whenever we're all available. And that's usually one weeknight and then maybe like Sunday night, but there's no real schedule. It feels a lot more like playing when we were kids, and if everybody was around, we played. I think the campaign will wrap up soon, but we may go back to it, next year. Who knows? So that's me and D&D. What is MCDM working on? Well, among other things, a new monster book. Strongholds and Followers and Kingdoms and Warfare were projects I promised you folks going all the way back to 2015. These were boutique products for DMs and players who like a certain style of game. But everybody loves monsters. All the folks at MCDM are excited for this project because it means making a bunch of new cool monsters with dope art. I think our products have great art, and I cannot wait for a whole monster book full of it. The goal is to make a book you could use instead of the monster manual. And to that end, we want, a bunch of new cool monsters, but we're also going to pick a bunch of classic monsters and do our version of them. Not just a new and, we hope, more fun design, but also a new visual design. Like elves in my world are not just pale, willowy humans with pointy ears. They are a different species. And we want to show that to you. There are a lot of monsters in the 5th edition monster book that are cool and, they're good for flavor, but you would probably never use them unless you're running a very specific kind of campaign. So we're not going to remake every or even most of those monsters, but we definitely want to see MCDM goblins and dragons and orcses. And playing 4th edition has reminded me of how much fun those monsters were to run in a way 5th edition monsters are not. Like, you look at all the different giants, and they're mostly just differently colored bags of hit points. That is not cool. Giants should be cool. So we want to take a bunch of classic monsters and update them and make them more fun to play. And folks really liked the action-oriented monsters video, so you're going to see more of that. Anytime we think a single monster should be able to take on an entire party by itself, it'll be action-oriented. We did a lot of that with the monsters in Kingdoms and Warfare, but I think we can do better. I think we could make them more straightforward and easier to run, but there's always a challenge when it comes to a single monster that can take on an entire party. So we're already working on this. We'll launch another Kickstarter for it eventually. Not every MCDM product needs a Kickstarter. Witness Arcadia and the Illrigger, but there's a certain point in development with a big project where it helps a lot to know how many people want this? And Kickstarter is great for that. The scope of the project is real different if only 5,000 people want it compared to 20,000 people. And gosh, it would be nice to know that. So you will see a Kickstarter for this book, I don't know when, eventually. And that brings us to some new classes for 5th edition we're working on. We learned a lot designing the Illrigger, and we want to put what we learned to use and make even better classes. So James and I made a list of new classes we think would be fun to work on and which would complement the existing classes. But some of these classes would require new game mechanics. And I said, hang on, if we make a new mechanic for this class, shouldn't there be monsters that use that mechanic too? James agreed, and so now we're working on the first of those 3 classes, the Beastmaster, which includes rules for having monsters as pets called companions. The idea is that anyone can have a pet basilisk if you can convince your DM that makes sense, but the Beastmaster can use their pet in really cool ways normal characters can't. James already has a design for this, which I think is very cool. We have several companion monsters already designed and in testing right now. So first you'll get a new class, the Beastmaster, including new rules for pets. Then you'll get a big monster book that includes lots of pet versions of the monsters inside. That's how we want the monster book to work. If we're going to do a psionic class, well, we need to figure out how psionics works, so there can be some psionic monsters in here. If we're going to do a summoner class that lets you play a necromancer who can control a horde of undead, which would be super awesome, we better figure out how minions work in 5th edition, and it's not as simple as just porting over the minion rules from 4th edition. 5th edition has a very different action economy. We already have prototypes of all of these new systems, and I've started working on the outline for the monster book, and it's incredibly fun to be able to work on all this stuff with James, and I don't have to do all or even most of the writing if I don't want to. What else? Arcadia. At this point, I assume you know what Arcadia is. Every month, you get 3 new articles for 5th edition, including new subclasses, adventures, magic items, locations. It's available on our Patreon for $5. It's a big hit. We have issues scheduled for the rest of the year out through issue 11, and we have no plans to stop. There are several articles I am personally very excited about. We just dropped Arcadia 6 last month, which included a party of rival adventurers called the Grim Accord. We have articles coming up in future issues, which include rules for 0-level characters that I think are awesome. We are still talking about ways we can increase the value of Arcadia. Obviously, we would like to just add more articles per month, and we might be able to do that, but we have to be careful. We want to get an issue done every month, and so far we've managed to do that without killing ourselves, but that's because each issue only has 3 articles in it. With only 3 articles per issue, we can get dope art done for each article and take the time to test each article. Testing is a big part of the MCDM strategy, and we have a ton of great testers, but also great art takes time, and more content in Arcadia means more art, and where is that time going to come from? So we have some ideas about how we could increase the value proposition of Arcadia in ways that do not require art and testing. But first of all, I'm not sure we have time to add more content to Arcadia at all. And also, we charge very little for Arcadia, but it takes an enormous amount of work, and these two things are not in alignment. I'm not sure what the solution is there. Also, I stressed when we started this whole thing that I wanted the articles to have a high utility for players or dungeon masters, and I think that has paid off, but it meant originally folks were judging Arcadia based on would I use all of these articles, and that was the conversation. But it brings me great joy now to see folks talking about how they just like reading Arcadia. Like they like getting a chunk of new content every month, and it doesn't matter if they're going to use all of it or not. It's just full of fun, inspiring ideas, and that makes me happy because that is exactly what it was like reading Dragon Magazine back in the 80s. I think maybe once or twice a year I would use something from Dragon, but that wasn't the point. It was just fun to read, and it stimulated new ideas and lots of discussion, and it made you feel plugged into the community of players. I think Arcadia does that, especially when a new issue drops, because we have an entire channel in our Discord dedicated to Arcadia, and folks go crazy whenever there's new content. They talk about all the articles, which are their favorites, why, how they plan on using it, how they are using it, and they create their own content based on this stuff. Folks have made new Illrigger subclasses and more mounts using Willie's mounted combat rules, so that is huge for us. We plan on continuing Arcadia until until for some reason we stop. Another question I get a lot in the Twitch streams is about the Player's Guide to Capital. I did a lot of work back in the day building out Capital for the Chain of Acheron campaign, and I thought, why not turn this into an outline for a product? A big city book for 5th edition. So we contracted a few writers, and they wrote about 40,000 words. And we also have the Heist adventure that might end up going in this book, but I don't know when it'll be done because there's still a lot of words left to write, and we have to get art and layout done for everything, and that is a lot of work and a lot of money. And right now, we just have bigger fish to fry. But until that happens, I strongly urge you to check out Ptolus. The P is silent, from Monte Cook Games. It is massive. It's probably more book than you need, but it is really cool and inspiring. Monty was one of the original designers of 3rd edition D&D, and Ptolus was the city he used for his 3rd edition game, and he designed it to be a place where everything you can find in D&D is in here. It's sort of impossible not to be blown away by Ptolus. So if you're looking for a big fantasy city book and you don't want to wait for Capital, I can strongly recommend Ptolus. It was originally for 3rd edition, but they just updated it for 5e. You can get it in print or in PDF form, link in the doobly-doo. So the Capital book is on the back burner. I do not know when it will move up in the queue. Right now we can work on Arcadia and something else, and right now the something else is the monster book and the other stuff we need to do for the monster book. It's been a while since there's been a new Running the Game video. Of course, there's gonna be more Running the Game episodes. I got a couple scripts already done. I got like 5 ideas for new videos just from one session of the 4E game. That's pretty typical. The more D&D I'm running, the more ideas I get for running the game. I know there are folks who missed 2015 when the series was new and you got like 1 or 2 or sometimes 3 videos a week. But the rate of videos has never changed. We've always made exactly 1 video every time I have an idea. But 6 years ago, I had 30 years of DMing and no videos, and now I've got like 6 years of videos, and I've said most of what I had to say. Nowadays, if I want more ideas for D&D videos, I gotta run more D&D. And I am, so keep watching. Somewhat unrelated to MCDM, every live stream we get folks asking, when is the 3rd book in my fantasy series coming out? And the answer is, I don't know. But more importantly, I want to explain to everyone why I am a fantasy novelist. I got 2 books done in what is planned to be a 5-book series. The first 2 books, Priest and Thief, were both written at different times in my life when I was the lead writer on a video game project, 2 different projects. And in each instance, I was dealing with an enormous amount of strife from management. Not my bosses. My bosses have always liked my writing, which is good since they hired me. But inevitably in video games, someone above them gets a burr up their ass about the writing in the game, usually without having read or heard any of it, and my job suddenly becomes a living hell. During those times when I wasn't in control and I was being very badly abused in my day job, I would turn to novel writing as a way of reminding myself, hey, I'm not worthless the way these people are saying. I have value as a writer, and I want to have something that is mine, something I'm in control of, something that reflects my style and voice, and in those times, I write novels. This is pretty common among writers who get frustrated working for other people. Most jobbing freelancers, no matter the industry, have the experience of going insane because the client is a wangrod, and writing in video games is no different. So you have some side project where you get to create for yourself. Well, now I've got YouTube and MCDM, and while things can be stressful, it's the kind of stress I like. It's a challenge. Let's solve it. I don't have a publisher over me making my life miserable. So yeah, it sucks that the 3rd book isn't done, and while I noodle on it every now and then, it sucks that I'm not actively working on it right now. I would like to finish the series, but I don't know when. Anything more specific would literally just be a guess. Finally, we got some new, somewhat experimental videos coming soon. No spoilers, stay tuned. That's it. I'm sure I forgot something. I'm sure folks have questions I haven't answered, but I stream on Twitch every now and then, usually once or twice a week, and people ask tons of questions there. Come on by and let me know what's on your mind. Thanks for watching, everybody. More videos soon. I think running the game video next. Probably a short one, then a long one, then a short one. Until then, peace out.